Hi guys, and welcome back to the Mighty Blues. My name is of course Cameron, and welcome back today to another video. It is another episode of In Other News, the show where we sit down and we talk about the latest Everton news that we haven't already talked about in the last couple of days. Obviously, we spoke about Seamus Coleman's injury on Monday morning, I believe. We spoke about Marcel Brands on Tuesday, and we've just done the game preview ahead of Everton's Premier League fixture against Burnley on Monday evening. Very, very difficult game. Don't forget to check out the game preview after this video if you haven't done already. That would mean a great deal to me. Very difficult game for Everton on Monday night, of course, after the international break. Coming up against the Burnley side, who haven't necessarily had the greatest start to the Premier League season, but we know notoriously over the years how difficult Burnley are to play against. They defend, obviously, with notoriously 10, 11 men behind the ball, and the onus really is on the opposition team to break Burnley down and to open the game up, and that's something that notoriously over the years Everton have struggled with, and hopefully something that Everton will find a lot easier on Monday night. We know we've got the likes of Damari Gray, of course, who's in fine form at the moment, 2 goals in his last 2 Premier League games. Dominic Calvert-Lewin hopefully has recovered from the injuries that he had prior to the international break. Richarlison's had a rest as well. We know we've got Andros Townsend, Alex Iwobi, Solomon Rondon potentially making his Everton debut as well. So hopefully Everton have got more than enough quality to be able to pick up all 3 points on Monday evening against Burnley. But the topic of conversation today for today's live stream is actually Richarlison, and more specifically Brazil. So I'm sure you've heard over the last couple of days, Paul Joyce and a lot of other journalists published an article stating that English clubs, including Liverpool and Manchester City, have been informed by FIFA that they will be unable to select their Brazilian players for a 5-day period or risk possible sanctions. Due to Everton's good relationship with the Brazilian FA, Richarlison is exempt to the rule and is available for Everton's game against Burnley on Monday. Now, if you're wondering why this is, it is basically, I don't know the exact situation, but I basically believe that the Brazilian players were called up to international duty, including Richarlison. Richarlison was one of those players called up. I assume you had Alisson from Liverpool and maybe Ederson from Manchester City and a couple of other players called up in the Premier League to go and play for Brazil. Now, due to Brazil, I believe, being on the red list in regards to COVID regulations to the UK, those players weren't allowed by their clubs and I believe by the English FA, but it might have just been by the clubs, they weren't allowed to go over there, because what it would have meant is when they returned from international duty, they would have had to have had a quarantine period. So effectively, Liverpool would have been without Alisson for whatever it is, 10 days, which could be 2-3 games maybe. Manchester City without Ederson, and so on and so forth. You get the point. The English clubs that had Brazilian players called up to their national sides would have been without those players for a period of time due to quarantine rules. I believe it was the same with Argentina. I think Emi Martinez from Aston Villa and Buendia as well were called up to Argentina, and therefore they have had that quarantine period. So effectively, I think the English FA and clubs said no, we're not going to allow. I think that everyone comes together and said no, we're not going to allow the players to go over, because it would mean that they have the quarantine period. The season's only just started. It's an international break that's in September. There's another one in October. Effectively, that's not happening. The Brazilian FA have then effectively informed FIFA to make a decision and to invoke a rule that means that over a 5-day period, as I read there, that those Brazilian players that were called up to international duty will not be able to play for their clubs due to the fact that they weren't allowed to be released on international duty, informed by FIFA that they will be unable to select their Brazilian players for a 5-day period. So I believe the Brazilian FA have said to FIFA, listen, we called them up, they weren't allowed to come, and therefore this ban effectively has been put in place which means that if those Premier League clubs do play their Brazilian players, then there will be possible sanctions, basically saying that they're not allowed to play those players. Now, obviously, where Everton come into this is Richarlison was called up to the Brazilian squad. So just on that basis and on what I've just said there, Everton would also fall under those rules and under those instructions that we wouldn't be allowed to play Richarlison for the 5-day period. I believe it's in September, in a couple of weeks' time. So effectively, he'd miss one Premier League game. I'm not too sure if it's during the period that we play the 3rd round of the Carabao Cup, but it definitely means that he would miss at least a Premier League game. Now, As Paul Joyce says, due to Everton's good relationship with the Brazilian FA, Richarlison is exempt to the rule and is available for Everton's game against Burnley on Monday night. Rafa Benitez was speaking about this in his pre-game press conference today. He said that, I think we are in a much better position than anybody. When we allowed Richarlison to go to the Olympic Games, we were in contact with them, meaning the Brazilian FA. We have a very good relationship with them. They understand and they say Richarlison was not an issue. We have a good relationship with the Brazilian FA. So effectively what Rafa Benitez is saying there is, and what the Brazilian FA have effectively said is, this rule is implied to everybody else except Everton, because you're dead sound and you allowed Richarlison to go to the Olympics and play in the Copa America before it, so you're not, you're an exemption to the rule. Now, look, as Evertonians, boss. Absolutely boss, because we're exempt to the rule. It means Richarlison doesn't have to go through a period where he can't play and miss a game of football. Obviously, we know Richarlison is one of our, if not our most important players, so having him be unavailable for the game unnecessarily would have been a massive inconvenience to Everton. So it's great. Everton are exempt to the rule. But obviously there's been a lot of outcry on social media, Twitter, as you would have expected from Liverpool fans, Manchester City fans, Tottenham fans, this, that and the other, because of this rule effectively not including Everton, even though Everton were in the same situation as those other clubs, i.e. Richarlison wasn't allowed to go on international duty, and therefore, technically we should be included in the ban. There's been a lot of outcry, like I said, there's been a lot of frustration, there's been a lot of fume, there's been a lot of fans that are quite bitter about the situation. And look, very rarely, by the way, let me just say this, very rarely does this happen to Everton, and Everton are on this side of the argument. Very rarely are Everton on the side of the argument where everybody else is fuming because they've been done over effectively and we haven't, and we're sort of sitting there going, we get in, is right, it's alright for us, so unlucky. Very, very rarely are Everton on this side of that conversation. Typically we're on the other side of the conversation and we're the fans that are going, hang on, how come the rule doesn't apply to this team or that player or this player, but it applies to us? And that's why, look, we can have a laugh, we can have a joke about it, we can sit here and say, haha, again, these teams are without key players. Obviously, Liverpool will be without Alisson, Leeds without Rafinha as well, this, that and the other. So I think it might even be for this week, because I think those two players will be out for this game. I think it's for this upcoming match, game week, if you like. So, listen, again, like I said, it's great to have banter, it's great to have a laugh, it's great to, be able to go, we're unlucky, we're sound, you're not. I do sort of understand the frustration, to be honest with you. You do sort of have to put yourself in the shoes of another fan or an opposition fan and think, well, hang on, can you imagine if, the Brazilian FA would have turned around and said, well, this is a rule that, we've given to all Premier League clubs. Richarlison can't play, Rafinha can't play, Ederson can't play, this, that and the other, but Liverpool are alright, Alisson can play, Fabinho can play, Liverpool are alright. It doesn't appear to them because they're sound. Imagine the fume, imagine the frustration amongst Evertonians if the Brazilian FA had a good relationship with Liverpool and this was flipped around instead, and we couldn't play Richarlison but they could play their Brazilian players, even though they'd done the same thing as we'd done. So I sort of understand it. I think the Brazilian FA maybe could have gone about it in a different way to make it seem a little bit fairer, even if it was just, by not selecting Richarlison and calling Richarlison up and saying, listen, you're straight back in the next international squad, but we're not going to select you for this one because we know that the players who were selected aren't going to be able to come, and we're going to invoke this ban, and we don't want you to be banned because we've got a good relationship with you and Everton, so we're not going to select you. It's nothing to do with your form or you as a player, it's to do with the fact that we know you're not going to play anyway, so we may as well not select you, and then, when the ban comes in, we can say, well, it doesn't apply to Everton and Richarlison because Richarlison wasn't selected for the squad anyway. I sort of get that Richarlison probably would have had something to say about that. Maybe he wouldn't have been too happy about it because it's a bad look on his brand that he hasn't been selected for the squad and this, that and the other. I understand that. But it is sort of one of them, isn't it, where you look at it and you think, yes, okay, we're on the right side of it, or we're on the good side of the argument at the moment, so it's sort of, is right, sound for us, no worries, happy days. But I get that, from opposition fans and from the feeling of opposition fans, that if it was the other way round and Everton were on the wrong end of it and Richarlison was banned and another player wasn't, I'd certainly be coming on here and having a go at everybody left, right and centre for this. But look, it's no secret Everton have got a good relationship with the Brazilian FA, and to be fair, The reason Everton are in this situation is because we allowed Richarlison to go away with Brazil to play in the Olympics. There was other Premier League clubs that wouldn't allow their players to go away in the Olympics, whether it be with Brazil or other nations to go and play. We allowed Richarlison to go and play in the Copa America directly after the Premier League season. You know, we basically had Richarlison playing Premier League games on no rest whatsoever. This last week of the international break is the only rest Richarlison's had in over a year, maybe even 2 years. He went straight from the end of last season into the Copa America, straight from the end of the Copa America into the Olympics, straight from the end of the Olympics 3 days later he was starting against Southampton, the first day of the Premier League. So I get it, and I get our relationship's good with the Brazilian FA, and I understand that, but I also sort of look and think, if it was the other way around, I'd probably be fuming as well. But look, who cares? It doesn't even matter, because Everton are exempt from the rule. Richarlison's exempt from the rule. Let other people have an argument. Let other people be frustrated with that. Let other people moan and groan and this, that and the other. The Brazilian FA are dead sound. Everton are dead sound with the Brazilian FA. Boss, happy days, is right. Richarlison can play tomorrow. Let's hope he scores an hat-trick and just goes, yeah, nice one. Then let's hope we start chanting, is right, Brazilian FA, or something like that, because it's a bit of a mad situation. It is a bit of a mad situation, but look, the reason Everton are in this position is because we allowed a lot of leeway to Richarlison and the Brazilian Association in regard to the Olympics. We knew how much the Olympics meant to Brazil and win gold there, so we give something, and they had to give something back, and this was it. Could they have done it in a bit of a fairer way and a bit less blatant way? Maybe, but maybe they weren't bothered. Maybe they just thought, we're not bothered whether it looks fair or not. They were dead sound to us, so we'll be dead sound to them. They weren't, so we're not dead sound to them. End of story. There you go. Anyway, look, Richarlison's available for Monday's game against Burnley, and that's all that matters. Like I said, arguably our most important player, certainly one of our most important players, so it would have been less than ideal, to say the least, if we'd have had to miss him on Monday. So fantastic news that he is available, fantastic news that we don't have to go through a period where he doesn't play. Other fans might have a little moan about that. I'm not really too bothered. I do apologise about the instant bright changes and light changes. I've got an issue with my blinds. I can't shut my blinds properly. So the sun is coming up and going down. So the brightness is going up and going down. So you might see me sort of, look like I've got lines across my face. That's because I've got an issue with my blinds. Anyway, moving on to some transfer news. Everton again this morning. We're linked with Arsenal fullback Ainsley Maitland-Niles. This was according to ESPN, and they have said that Everton are planning on reviving their interest in Ainsley Maitland-Niles this coming January. Everton will apparently pursue a permanent deal. Really, really interesting, that one. Obviously, we know Ainsley Maitland-Niles was, for at least a couple of hours, trying to force a move through to Everton, or at least it seemed like that on transfer deadline day. He put an Instagram post up tagging Arsenal about how he just wants to go and play football and how he wants to go and play somewhere where he's appreciated and liked. And then we know, obviously, from different reports in the media and stuff, he had a meeting with Mikel Arteta. He sat down with Mikel Arteta and maybe a few other people at Arsenal, and they managed to convince him that he was part of their plans and that he was going to stay. But obviously, that might change in January. He might get to January, think, I've not had enough game time here, I want to move on, and maybe Everton are looking at that and thinking, right, well, we'll revive our interest in January. But it'll be really interesting to see if Everton do go back in for Ainsley Maitland-Niles, or given the fact that, we'll be a little bit more relaxed with FFP in January and next summer, whether we go, do you know what, you had your chance, there's better out there now, and we've got a little bit more wriggle room, we've got a little bit more money to spend, so I hope you're alright, but we're going to move on to somebody else. Obviously, Everton announced the signing on deadline day of Venezuelan international Solomon Rondon. It has been confirmed today that he will wear the number 33 jersey at Everton, and he has been training this week ahead of a potential Premier League debut for Everton against Burnley at Goodison Park on Monday night. He's looked really sharp in training, he's looked really positive. He spoke very highly of the football club, very highly of his move to the football club as well over the last couple of days, and I do hope that we see him on Monday night in some capacity. I'm not sure whether he'll start, but if he doesn't start, hopefully he gets at least 20-25 minutes off the bench at the end of the game, and gets a chance to make his Goodison debut in front of the fans and, show what he can bring to this Everton side. There's still a lot of Evertonians that are a little bit not quite sure on the Solomon Rondon signing yet, so I think it'll be good for him to get that chance to get involved and show exactly what he can bring. But we know today it has been confirmed that Solomon Rondon will wear the number 3 jersey at Everton. So fantastic news that James Rodriguez was linked massively to Istanbul Başakşehir last week. BBC Era with the latest said that James Rodriguez rejected a move to Başakşehir and will remain at Everton. That was of course before the Turkish transfer window slammed shut, but prior to that there was a lot of rumours linking the Colombian international with a move over to Turkey. However, he wasn't convinced by the potential of playing in the Turkish league and for Istanbul Başakşehir, and therefore has decided to remain at Everton. Whether he'll remain beyond the couple of other transfer windows that are still open this summer, we'll have to wait and see. Hopefully he does, because if he does, I think he can have an impact on this Everton side. But we will wait and see, as I said. According to Photosport via Sport Witness last week, Cenk Tosun is set to return to Besiktas this coming January transfer window. Obviously, we know Cenk Tosun currently, I think, recovering from an injury that he picked up towards the back end of last season when he was on loan at Besiktas. And we know he's out of contract at Everton this summer, so the assumption is that he'll walk for absolutely nothing. It'll be another 20 million or however much we spent on him completely down the drain, and another player who we spent a lot of money on and have managed to get absolutely nothing back for. I don't think he's in Rafa Benitez's plans. I can't see why he'd be in Rafa Benitez's plans. Whether or not he'll feature in some form this season is to be seen, but I'm almost certain that Cenk Tosun will be leaving Everton Football Club next summer, and apparently he might be even earlier than that, as apparently Besiktas are interested in bringing him in January. We know obviously Seamus Coleman had picked up an injury on international duty in Ireland's FIFA World Cup qualifier against Azerbaijan, I believe. He missed the game against Serbia. Rafa Benitez was asked about the injury today, and he said that he believes Seamus Coleman could be available for Monday's game. He said the injury isn't too serious and he hopes that he will be available for the game on Monday night. So let's hope that is the case. Let's hope that's true, and let's hope we see Seamus back, and back 100%. I said this in the preview earlier on. If Seamus is going to be, be starting on Monday at 70% and risking potentially further injury to that hamstring, and therefore being out for 2, 3, 4 weeks, then I don't know whether I'd rather just have John Joe Kenny in there, or Mason Holgate in there, or Ben Godfrey in there for the time being. But if Seamus is back at 110%, then I'm sure he will start. And yeah, just before we go, I want to say a massive congratulations to Meatball Molly. UFC fighter Meatball Molly was successful last Saturday in her UFC bout in Vegas. She come away with the win. What a performance, what a scrap it was. She's an absolute, she's brilliant, isn't she? If you watched it and you're into your UFC or your mixed martial arts, I'm sure you'll know Meatball Molly McCann. She's an absolute warrior, and as she said, Scousers and another fellow Scouser, Paddy Pimlet, said, Scousers don't get knocked out. Massive Evertonian Meatball Molly as well. Always speaking about her love for Everton Football Club. So big congratulations to Molly on her victory last week. And that's going to do it for today's episode of In Other News. If you have enjoyed this one, please do hit that like button. It does only take a second. As I said, please do check out our match preview ahead of Everton's Premier League fixture against Burnley on Monday night. It would mean a great deal to me if you could go and give that one a watch. But until then, if you've enjoyed this one, leave a like. Don't forget to subscribe if you're new as well. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you soon on the Mighty Blues. Cheers for watching. See you after.